Hey everybody, Jake here with Klein Time Photography, and this is going to be the part 2 of the Differential Breathers walkthrough. I looked at some of the comments from some of my videos, and I think it was Matt's builds, and then another person had some other questions on the differential breathers and like how you can make them better and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go do a walkthrough of them, explaining like their uses and how they kind of work and everything like that. Usually when it comes to something kind of technical like this, I can consult my Haynes repair manual right here, and it'll give me an idea of what I'm getting myself into. As far as this went, I pretty much had to look at some YouTube videos, kind of look at what everybody was doing as far as repairs and stuff like that, and then kind of figure out how I can make it better, which I always like to try and do whenever I fix something. So, but having said that, if you guys have any questions or anything like that on repairing your vehicle, try getting one of these repair manuals. They work really well for a lot of your basic stuff. Unfortunately, this specific thing I couldn't find in here, but you can pretty much tear apart your entire vehicle with one of these manuals and put it back together. So if you can, try and get a hold of one of these for future references for pretty much almost anything that you can pertain to your truck. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into it. Alright, so we're going to talk about parts a little bit first, that way I can kind of orient you on what we have going on here. So right here, obviously we have our pumpkin and rear differential. I'm underneath the truck right now. And right here is where our breather hose comes out. So the breather hose, stock, originally came up right out of here, didn't have an E-clamp, and went all the way up to right here where this cross member is, right underneath the bed of the truck. So I'm going to show you in a little bit why that's important. Alright, so this is one of those examples like I was telling you guys in my last video where I use my tailgate for everything. So right here we're going to do a little drawing. Kind of really helps me personally to see and visualize what I'm working with. I even, whenever I build stuff, I always use graphing paper and stuff like that to kind of get an idea of like how to build something. And it's the same thing for when you're trying to understand something like this, right? So this is our rear differential, right? So our tires would be, right here. And right here, where we saw is our differential breather hose, right? And then that came up to our cross member that we saw, that's right underneath the truck bed. And that was held in by just a plastic insert with no filter, no nothing, basically just a giant hole right here on the top just to allow air to come in and out, right? So the thing with any type of metal spinning around, because you have gears and a whole bunch of other stuff going on right here in the differential and your pumpkin, and it builds up heat, right? So, and I figured out this recently, with the reason these hoses are here is these actually supposedly aren't on every vehicle. They're on four-wheel drives mostly. They're also on typically they're mostly on four-wheel drives. They're not, I guess some two-wheel drives are not on, and it also depends on the brand apparently too. Like apparently this isn't on all vehicles. It just happens to be on my F-150. So the way this works is you have a bunch of gears going on and a lot of stuff's happening, you know, that's driving your vehicle, projecting it forward. So that starts building up heat after a while, right? Well, heat, as we know, when you have heat in a container, essentially in a confined space, it starts to develop pressure. So the pressure has to go somewhere, right? Well, the reason why these are there is so the pressure will go out and then up the breather hoses and then expel as the pressure is building, right? Hence the point of the breather hoses. So when that pressure is building, air and whatnot pressure is coming out. This is great because instead of the pressure going to our seal, like our differential cover that's right here, and exerting force on the outside of our seal, all that pressure goes out through our differential hoses and it is expelled out through the end piece right here. Now, the exact opposite happens when it cools. So as a differential starts to kind of cool, it almost develops a vacuum. So now, because this is starting to cool down, air starts to be sucked in to the breather hose and then comes back down in and then into the pumpkin to help cool everything down. So the problem we have is, let's say we're going over a water crossing, right? And water is obviously going to cool this differential very quickly, right? Because obviously water is going to be cold. So what may happen is, because this has no it's right now, or currently was sitting low, water can, let's say we go over a water crossing and our water level is here, water could potentially come down into the breather hose or axle hose and go into our differential, which obviously we do not want water in our differential. Another key important thing as well is you have to be careful when you're doing water crossings, because let's say you have leaks here in your differential, you know, you have, you know, gear oil leaking out or whatever, you know, you have puddles underneath your differential. What can happen is that water could potentially go through those leak spots where it's leaking gear oil and get into your differential as well. So you have to be careful when you're doing water crossings and your vehicle's leaking. And that goes for anything that's leaking. It could potentially go in there. So let's take another scenario. Let's say we are in a cold climate. This is kind of where I correlate it to. Let's say we're in a cold climate, but it's also very dusty, right? So your differential is getting hot, cooling, getting hot, cooling. Another thing that can happen is this is hollowed out, so air can quickly go in and out. Another problem could be dust can go into this port or dirt and end up in your differential as well, because there is no filter here, at least not on this vehicle, where it's going to prevent dirt and anything else getting in and going into the hose and then getting into your differential. So in order to fix this, and it was a pretty simple fix, what I did was, and I needed to have it happen, was I basically took off the existing hose that was running to the top of the cross member underneath the truck bed and extended it all the way into my physical truck bed, and then added E-clamps and everything else, and I will show you that to you here in just a bit. Okay, so we were just talking about how I've changed it, right? So what I ended up doing was I took this hose off. Went to the hardware store, got some fuel line. You can see right here, this is fuel line, Gates, for fuel line, PVC, blah, blah, blah. This is a 7.9 millimeter fuel line. I basically wanted to get something semi-close to what was on here, and then, but also as well tight enough for replacement. So I took the old line off, took the plastic piece out, and then disconnected everything. Added on these screw clamps to make sure it was nice and tight, and then ran this line all the way up through my what would be my spare tire carrier, and then came across, and then actually went up into the back of the truck bed. So and then you end up right here. So I did here's the hole that goes to the bottom through the truck bed. I also have another electrical connector right here as well. And then brought this fuel line all the way up into the truck bed. Now the truck bed, I personally think, is a great little sealed spot from dust and everything like that. Yes, does dust get back here? Absolutely. But it's not going to be as dusty as opposed to being underneath the truck bed and then sucking in all that dust or terrain that I'm driving through. So our fuel line, I ran up here, did a screw clamp, and then I got some of these fuel filters that you can buy at pretty much any hardware store. I think you can get them at AutoZone or Riley's or wherever, and then attach that to further filter any air that's coming in and out of this fuel hose. So that's for the rear differential. So I personally do need to be careful when I'm going against water crossings, because like stated, you know, the water can't get in there and get into inside your differential, and nobody definitely wants that. Another thing a couple people have asked me about is I'm still running the stock differential cover, and a lot of people are asking me, like, why haven't you upgraded to a different differential cover? Well, believe it or not, I actually was looking into this pretty recently about getting a different differential cover, maybe something that holds a little bit more oil. Well, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but go check out Banks Power video on differentials. He does a really great job of going through and kind of showing you the mechanics of what's going on inside your differential, and has a really great video. I would definitely recommend watching his video before you buy any type of differential cover at all. So yeah, definitely go check that out, just for some great info. Alright, so we're going to do a little bit of a side shot to kind of give you an idea of the location of the new breather hose and where it ends. So before, kind of give you an idea right here, the breather hose was sitting right in here, right inside this tube. So now, and you can kind of see what I mean, how the tube's all hollowed out like that. So now, we come back, now it sits up, all the way up right here, towards the top of the truck bed. So it's isolated now, and I don't have to worry really about it getting wet, because now the only way that this breather hose is going to get wet is if I go in water that's all the way up to my truck bed. And I'm definitely not going to be doing any type of water crossings like that, even if I think that they are anywhere near that deep. And two, now it's a lot more isolated and more of a confined area where the end of the breather hose can be kept a little bit more cleaner and away from the elements. That was the differential down right there. Now we're going to come up to the transfer case. If you have an F-150 of this year, this is the torsion bar right here. So just kind of go look back, and then kind of come to this exhaust mount right here, and then it should be right above it, right above that exhaust mount. So yeah, just go to your exhaust mount and then look up, and then it should be right around right here. So transfer case breather hose, I ended up running, came out. I didn't want to run, you have to be careful you don't run it close to the exhaust, because the last thing you want to do is melt the breather hose that you just installed. So I came out and just run it along the frame right here. You can kind of see it. There it is. And then started following it all the way up. And then eventually you end up into the engine compartment. And then here is the extended breather hose for the transfer case. All right, here we go, everybody. And this is it. This is the front breather, diff breather hose right here. This is one I had installed. Turns out that when I extended it, I tied it back into what I thought was an area that it goes into, but it turns out it doesn't go into that area, and I'll show you what I mean here in just a sec. So we're gonna, while we're doing this video, we're actually gonna be rerunning another hose right here, and then this other older one that I have in here I'm gonna pull out. Okay, so this is what I'm just talking about here. So I initially came up and had that other hose, and I saw that it was connected to this guy right here. Initially it was connected by a plastic clip. The plastic clip broke right after this point right here, so I makeshifted this using some brass parts. It's worked good, but then what happened was is I started following, which I should have done last time, is I started following this hose, and turns out it ends up becoming this little hose right here, and that is actually was tucked in right back in here. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of breathing going on, I don't think, behind that little thing. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, and there's actually a plastic clip that's back here too. Let's see if I can get a hold of it to show you guys. Let's see if you can see that. See that clip right there? So this black line right here that I'm holding on to is where is connected to the end of this, where the breather hose comes out, and that's basically has no filter, nothing on it right now. And then it comes out the other side and goes back to that other piece right back here. You can see where I have the clamp right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to disconnect this assembly right here. These other two hoses are vacuum hoses for the front differential and activating the actuator to engage the front differential for four-wheel drive. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm just going to connect these both together, and then after that I'm just going to run a separate line for the breather hose and take the breather hose out of this whole little assembly right here. So I went to Napa, grabbed some of these, the other fuel filters I was using. I'm going to swap out that other metal one that I showed you guys earlier. And this is a 3011 part number. And then I'm using these fuel filters right here. I really like these mostly because they're clear. They're small and they're clear, so you can kind of see the fuel filter once it starts getting dirty and everything like that. So instantly you're going to know when to change them. So this is a new experiment I'm working on. Right now, like I said, that front differential breather hose doesn't have anything on it, no filter, no nothing. So I think I'm just going to throw one of these in there, and then I think that will really help it out. Okay, so I was able to disconnect this. So this is that connector I was telling you about. Here's the breather hose for this. So that came down through here, and then this end right here goes all the way back to the front differential, and then this would be the end that connects into your front differential breather port. So I took that off. So now what I'm going to do is, I already have this connected. I'm just going to run this straight up through, and then just run. I stepped up the size of the breathing hose. This is what size tubing is this? This is 5/16 tubing. And then, yeah, I'm just going to run the fuel filter right on the end like this. And then I'm probably going to end up tucking it back away in here somewhere, right kind of by the previous area. So I was able to get that clip out. Here's kind of what it looks like. So basically I'm going to take this out. So this, we're not going to need this anymore. And then these other two ports right here are the vacuum for the vacuum activated actuator for the front wheel differential. So yeah, I think after I put on this other tubing, it's going to make this a lot better, because yeah, that's, gosh, that's such a small little hose right there, really tiny. Okay, and that's it for the breather hose extension. So that's all finished now. Went down and connected it all the way back down to the differential. So we are looking good. That's what it looks like now, right there. And then if you guys are actually ever wondering what the where the vacuum actuator is, it's just on the other side of the differential breather. It's right here. You can see two of the vacuum hoses, I think, right there if you look closely. So those are the other two hoses that go up to that that plug that I was showing you, and then that's your actuator for your four-wheel drive. This one, now that I'm looking at, it's probably a little old. I probably need to change it here soon. So, yep, that's that. Alright, so that's it, everybody. That's all the differential breather hoses and what I did to extend them. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Another thing to look out for is, yeah, just look at your vehicle and see if you have differential breathers. Supposedly not all vehicles have them. Apparently they're pretty popular in four-wheel drives. Another thing to look for too is whether or not you have some type of valve that I've heard they have in some differential breather hoses. Is it's a one-way valve, so when the air can go through one way, but it can't come back out the other way. Like for example, when the differential is getting really hot and it's pushing out all that pressure, the pressure can get released. But when it's cooling down and it's sucking air in, creating that vacuum effect, those valves won't allow air to get in and back into the differential. So that can obviously cause some problems when you should be having air going both ways. So yeah, I definitely think especially for this front differential, having that bigger hose helps. Another thing I heard too was having like at least 7mm style hose, like at least for this vehicle. Do some research. Maybe some other people have already done this and have used, know exactly what size hosing or tubing to use. So do some research, check out maybe some other videos, kind of see what everybody else is doing as well. ARB, I know, makes a differential breather kit that I want to say has 4 different ports for everything, so you can run basically all your tubing all into one area. So that's another option if you don't want to do this particular method. But yeah, hopefully you guys learned something today. Like I said, I enjoy doing all the videos for you, so if you guys want me to do any other videos, keep those comments rolling, like, comment, subscribe, And see you guys next time. Later.